Okay, so what if you could influence living cells from hundreds of miles away, with, like, no physical connection at all? It sounds like something straight out of sci-fi, right? Well, a recent study went there, asking a question that really blurs the lines between biology and physics.
And this is it. This is the central kind of mind-bending question of the whole thing. Can a real biological process, we're talking the actual energy inside a living cell, be influenced from over 500 miles away with literally zero physical contact?
So, at the heart of what we're talking about today is this really bold, double-blind experiment. What these researchers wanted to know was whether a so-called quantum field, you can kind of think of it as this fundamental non-local energy source, could have a real, measurable effect on human cells.
But before we get to the wild results, we gotta cover a quick basic. What were they even measuring? Well, it all comes down to the fundamental power source inside every single one of your cells.
Meet adenosine triphosphate, or ATP for short. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is as the cell's rechargeable battery. It's the juice that powers pretty much everything your cells do. This makes the amount of ATP a perfect way to measure a cell's overall energy level and its health.
Okay, so you've got this pretty extraordinary claim. And as they say, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. So how on earth do you even test something like this without letting any bias creep in?
Well, they used the gold standard for this kind of stuff, a rigorous double-blind procedure. Here's how it worked. They prepped identical batches of cells, then secretly labeled them A and B. One group got exposed to this remote quantum field. And here's the crucial part. The scientists actually measuring the ATP levels had absolutely no idea which group was which until all the data was collected and locked in.
And that right there is the key to good science. Everything else was kept exactly the same. The cells, the environment, all of it. They isolated just one single variable. The only difference between the two groups was this mysterious remote quantum field exposure.
All right, so the experiment's done, all the numbers are crunched, and only then did they break the code to see which group was which. And the results were pretty surprising.
Just take a look at these graphs. In every test, that blue line, that's the cells that got the quantum field exposure. It shows a really clear spike. Meanwhile, the orange line, that's our control group, it just kind of stays flat. That spike means one thing. The treated cells were suddenly producing a lot more energy.
And how much more energy are we talking about? Well, they reported a jump of between 20 to 29% in the treated cells compared to the controls. I mean, that's not a small blip. That's a really noticeable boost in cellular energy.
And what's really important is that this wasn't some weird fluke. They saw it happen in two completely different types of human cells. And get this, it even worked when they took away the cell's main food source, which is glucose. That suggests that whatever's happening, it's something more fundamental.
So we've got these really intriguing results. But what do they actually mean? And just as important, how skeptical should we be here?
The researchers themselves are very, very clear on this. This is early stage work. Yes, the results are fascinating, and they were collected under really strict conditions, but they're still preliminary. They don't know how it works, and the findings absolutely have to be repeated by other independent scientists to be confirmed.
So the study's official conclusion is, very carefully worded. They're not shouting from the rooftops that they've rewritten the laws of physics. They're just saying they've found some preliminary evidence that something non-local might be able to influence a cell's energy factory. In other words, they've kind of opened a door to a very strange and fascinating new possibility.
And that's really the big takeaway, isn't it? This study pushes at the absolute boundaries of what we think is possible. If non-local forces can actually influence the very energy of life, it forces us to ask a really profound question. What other connections are out there, working in ways we don't even have the words for yet?